Hi there, I'm Jackie and welcome to Nested Gardens. Today I'm talking all about starting your Canadian garden from seed. And I consider it to be the most wonderful time of the year. I'm here, I've got my fire started, my cat's purring right beside me, and I've got my seed catalog, and so I'm all ready to plan out my garden for the spring. But I understand that for a lot of people it can be really overwhelming. The catalogs are thick with dozens of varieties of hundreds of different types of plants, and it's really hard to know where to begin. So I'm here to walk you right through it. Now there's a wonderful quote from Josephine News, and it goes like this: "Anyone who thinks that gardening begins in the spring and ends in the fall is missing the best part of the whole year, for gardening begins in January with the dream." So I hope you guys are ready to dream with me. The first thing we're going to do is check out the legend. Now, a lot of times I look at my seed catalogs now online just because I want to save paper, but it is so nice every once in a while to get an old-fashioned one, curl up, and have a peruse. So down at the bottom, or often in the front, there's a legend that talks about there's little icons, and then it gives you indications of what the different seed varieties have. Now, one that's especially important to look out for is something that says the seed is either going to be an heirloom variety that's open pollinated or a hybrid. Now, an heirloom variety of seed is a seed that's been passed down through the generations, just like an heirloom piece of jewelry would be. It often comes with a beautiful story, a fancy name, and if you're a romantic like me, then the heirloom varieties are for you. Now, open pollinated means that the plant has been pollinated by means like wind, birds, bees, or the farmers tickling all the flowers. And the baby plant has the same characteristics as the parent plant. So these are the kind of seeds that you'd be able to save yourself after they've grown and reached maturity, and then you can use again the next year. So for a backyard farmer, heirloom and open pollinated seeds are really the best way to go. Now, hybrid seeds also have a really valuable purpose. Most farmers use them because they are bred between two different varieties of plants, and they have really great characteristics in the first generation, such as stronger stems, higher yields, and like I said, they are really valuable. But a downside to hybrid plants is that you cannot save the seeds because the baby plants, if the parent is the first generation hybrid, then the babies don't necessarily have the same characteristics as the parent plant. You often lose a lot of vigor, and so you would have to be buying hybrid seeds new each year. Another thing you'll want to look out for is there's often, beside the name of the seed in the catalog is like 100 days, 56 days, whatever. It's the days to maturity. So that's how long from when you put your transplant in the ground, so your little baby plant goes into the ground in the garden, how long it's going to take to mature. Now, as a rule of thumb, I personally don't choose anything that's over 100 days because where I am in Nova Scotia, the last frost date is so late that I know that anything that's more than 100 days, I'm really going to be pushing it to try and get it to grow and mature so that I can harvest it before the first frost in the fall. So what am I talking about? Last frost, first frost? Well, these are really important dates for you to know, and they vary depending on where you are, what growing zone you're in. Now, I checked the Farmer's Almanac, and it said that where I am in Halifax, that the last frost date is May 8th and the first frost is October 20th, which gives me 164 growing days. But that is really just a generalization and not something that you can hold firm to. All the old timers in my area say that you're not supposed to put anything in the ground until after the first full moon in June. So that really puts it way back. Whereas out west, spring comes a lot earlier, and you can plant usually the May long weekend, Victoria Day weekend is when you're pretty safe and you wouldn't be getting a crazy frost. Although if you're from Alberta, you know that quite often the May long weekend it snows, so you'll want to do it after that. And then the first frost days for the fall out west come a lot sooner, usually mid-September, whereas on the Atlantic side, it's usually into October or even November this year for us. So you have to know your area, you have to look at your dates, and then be conservative, because there's nothing more depressing than putting in some new plants and having the frost kill them, or having a plant that's all fully loaded, almost ready to harvest, and then the first frost kills all your fruits. Now beyond that, you want to start developing a schedule for starting your seeds. Now, everything in the garden has generalizations and rules of thumb, and there are exceptions to every single rule. But my advice for first-time or second-time gardeners is to go with the generalizations, and then the exceptions will show themselves to you, usually in the forms of lessons, or also known as failures, but in the garden anyways, everything is always a lesson. Just sometimes you get to eat your lesson, and sometimes you have to throw your lesson in the compost pile. So generally speaking, the first thing you're going to want to start is any perennial seeds that you order. So say you wanted to try growing lavender or other kind of herbs, maybe some perennial flowers you'd like to try. Those I start 10 to 12 weeks before the last frost, so before the beginning of June. I would count back in my calendar and plan that. Then the next thing that I want to do about 10 weeks before last frost is anything that I would grow to eat for the stem. So like celery, onions, chives, things like that. Then at about 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost, you would do the Solanaceae family of plants. So that's your tomatoes, peppers, ground cherries is one that I definitely recommend for new gardeners. It's super easy to grow and it's so delicious. And then counting back, you're going to want to plant at about 6 weeks your melons, squash, cucumbers, those kind of things. And then down to about 4 to 6 weeks, then I'd start with my brassica family. So that's cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, those guys. And then just before the last frost, so we're looking into now May, June-ish time, there are some things that are cold tolerant that you can plant right in the ground. So that would be peas, your lettuce, things like that, even spinach. And then you're going to want to wait till that last frost date passes before you're going to safely plant into the ground the seeds that can be started. Like beans can go straight into the garden after last frost, sunflowers, things like that the frost would kill but can be grown right into the ground. And then you want to put all of your little transplant babies that you started inside into the garden. Anyhow, seed starting is a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, but just to give you an idea looking forward as you're ordering your seeds, what you're in for. And it's a ton of fun. And my biggest recommendation is just to go for it. Order things that are fun. Order a loofah if you want to. If you want to grow a sponge, then I am all about that life. So I would like to encourage you, take a chance. And like I said, it's all going to be a lesson, and you'll have that feather in your cap and be ready for the next season. And so to help you out, I've created this resource. It's a list of as many as I could find Canadian, local heirloom, and open pollinated seed companies that you can reach out to order your seeds. I have a map there where it shows the different grow zones so that you can choose the seed companies that are growing in your area. Because a great thing about open pollinated seeds is that the plants adapt to the local growing conditions, and then through the generations they build up different tolerances to the climate that you're growing in. So it's great to find something as close to home as you can get. You support your local small businesses and get some really good fresh quality seeds. So be sure to check out that PDF resource. The link is in the description, and while you're at it you can sign up for my newsletter, and I will be giving you all kinds of tips and tricks. We'll be walking right through the whole growing season, and I can't wait to do that. So until next time, happy growing. See you later.